standing at the border of what we used to know. 5 points in the darkness make a different kind of show. They say we're better together, but what do they know when the stars align differently down here below? And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Remember all the stories that your granddad told about a republic that wouldn't be controlled. Now the suits in the city say we've all been sold, but there's a fire burning that just won't get old. And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. They draw their lines on paper, we draw ours in the sand. Some dreams are getting closer, while some don't understand. Don't understand. The highways stretch forever toward a setting sun, where cattle graze on memories of battles won. They say unity's the answer, but maybe we're done with playing by the rules of the chosen one. Oh, maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Our own sky. Our own sky.
Hey, good evening, everyone. It is that time again, and I'm very glad to be here with you. This is going to be a good one tonight. It may be a little short. I'm on a really hard deadline to get some things done, and so we'll just play it by ear. If you guys have a lot to talk about, then we'll talk about it. If not, we will cut it short, and I will get back to work in there because what I'm working on is very, very, very important. But that being said, let's kick this bad boy off right. Welcome to Late Night Coffee Talk. I'm Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist Movement, and this is that time where once a week I take a break from what I'm working on. I pour yet another cup of coffee, and I come in here and answer your questions, right? Talk about whatever you want to talk about related to TEXIT, the TNM, independence or self-determination in general, Texas politics, culture, personal stuff, whatever it is, right? I'm probably one of the most accessible people in the Texas political realm because I make myself available to you every single solitary week. And so if you got questions, now is the time to get them in. Now, if you're not here, if you've not been here before, then you're probably asking yourself, well, how in the world do I ask a question? This is a computer. I don't talk to my computer screen because people would think I'm crazy, right? I've got an answer for you, right? That avoids all of the uncomfortable situation of you trying to ask a question to your computer monitor or your phone screen. Although if it was a phone screen, it would make a lot more sense, right? People would just think you're on the phone. But this is easier, right? So wherever you're watching this, all you have to do is drop your question in the chat. Now, obviously, my preference is that you would be watching it on the Texian app, right? Here, let me just go ahead and get this out of the way for the first time tonight. What is the Texian app, you say? Oh, I say that it is the place that supporters for Texas independence organize, act, and connect, right? You can, if you're on a computer, you can go to texian.app. Or you can go right to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, search for Texian and download the mobile app and sign up there, as many of you are doing every single day. And I got to say, it's very nice to see all of the new people getting on board. Look, it's the backbone of the Texas Nationalist Movement. It's what we're using to organize everything. It hosts our video, it hosts our live streams, it hosts our county groups, are, all that stuff, right? I don't need to tell you, just go check it out. And then you can watch over here because we're live streaming there and it has its own chat and you get to ask your questions there. Okay, so that's place number one. If you're watching on any of those other platforms, right? YouTube, Facebook, X, Rumble, I think that's all the ones that we're at. Wherever you're watching over there, all you got to do is, yet again, drop your question in the chat. But while you're there, to help us in our valiant fight against the algorithm and algorithmic censorship, be sure to like and comment and share and do all the cool things that you can do over there because it does help. I mean, it absolutely helps. Even if you just leave us a one-word comment or if you give us a like, or you give us a share or whatever the things are over there, it always helps. And, it may help obviously during the time that this is airing, but additionally, afterwards, it helps people see the replays. And for those of you watching on the replay, we're here Thursday night, 8 p.m. every week, unless something is going on and I can't be here. So it's all sort of pending my availability. Anyway, one more way that you could submit your questions, and you will see it scroll at the bottom of the screen here in just a moment, and that is you can email your questions at any time. Doesn't even have to be during the live broadcast. Email them to coffeetalk, all one word, at thetnm.org, and I think it's on the screen right now. So you can do that if you don't feel comfortable asking your question in chat, like one gentleman, apparently. I can understand why he would not want to post that in chat. Just email them over, right? I hit all of them. I hit the chats and the email and Texian and all that. And Kara is about 2-3 walls that way doing that right now, helping me triage questions to make sure that I don't miss anything. So that being said, let's take a swig of coffee and get started. When I say this thing I'm working on is big, I mean it, like really impactful for the TNM. I'm excited about it. All right, let's kind of see where we're at. Yeah, all right. Let's let's get tucked in. I think we got some good ones already tonight. So let's throw these in here. All right, this is from Chris. Chris says, Daniel, it seems like either John Cornyn or Team Cornyn is posting an ad on X every 60 seconds. And the comment ratio overwhelmingly favors Paxton. How much money from outside of Texas is paying for Cornyn's X campaign, even though Texans have booed him off the stage time and time again? There is a lot. There's a lot that I can unpack there. But before I start, here's what I'm going to do. This platform released a brand new thing, right? A brand new feature. And it's polling. Now, before I launch this, before I get complaints, they're not wired into the Texian app. We don't have a way to do that yet. So obviously, YouTube, Facebook, X, Rumble, you can participate. Kara will be watching the chat over there on the Texian app, and so we'll be able to supplement. But what's displayed on the screen will only be figures from there, because here it is. While I tuck into this question, here is the poll. I want to ask you, who do you think will win the Texas Senate race? All you got to do is type and send 1 for Ken Paxton, 2 for John Cornyn, or 3, you're just not sure. And these results will show up live on the screen. Remember, just 1, 2, or 3. If you type 1 and a bunch of stuff after it, it's probably not going to pick it up, right? So just reply in chat with 1, 2, or 3, and then you'll be ready to go. And I'll leave this running for the duration of answering this question. But Chris gave me a lot to unpack here. Okay, so there is a question that's buried in here, which is how much money from outside of Texas is paying for Cornyn's X campaign. But I want to really unpack this more, because I mean, look, the short answer is really easy, right? It's a lot, and we don't even need the current FEC reports to tell us that it's a lot. I mean, you can go look at historicals, and you can go look. I mean, you can see the flood of money, not necessarily just coming into John Cornyn's campaign, but really being spent to try to get him elected. And it strikes at a fundamental difference between the way federal races work versus state races. And granted, they both have this ridiculous kind of influx of outside of Texas money, but they have a different reporting cadence. And so much like we still don't have final fundraising results for the March primaries, because after you file that pre-election report, the next filing is not due until So July, right? So that would be the 6-month report. The first 6 months of the year, I think, is due in July. So we still won't even have numbers from those state campaigns, but we are getting some from the FEC. And so you've got money being donated to Cornyn, and it's not just him, right? This happens across the board. But you have a lot of money being spent by political action committees and C4s, 501c4s, on behalf of these candidates. And it is an ungodly amount of money that's dumping into Cornyn's race. And I've always said, look, you don't see massive spends like you're seeing right now unless somebody's in trouble, right? Unless there is definitely something happening. There is some rationale that they need to bump up name ID. They feel like maybe the polling is too close. I saw it twice. I saw it in my state rep race in 2012, and I saw it back when I ran for lieutenant governor. If they did not feel or have some data showing that there was potentially a threat there, and I don't say a threat, I say potentially a threat, they would not spend like they did. I think in my state rep race, I was able to raise and spend like 10 grand. Alan Ritter raised and spent $300,000. you don't do that for no reason whatsoever. And so that would be maybe even previous to this cycle, before I did like a whole lot of data analysis, which I have done on this cycle. That would have been like my answer, and that would have been the end of it, right? Cornyn's in trouble. He's raising and spending. A lot of it's coming from outside of Texas. And that would have been it. But this is really a good opportunity, I think, to talk about something that really no one else talks about in politics, right? And that is, look, if first and foremost, there is a consultant class out there, political consultants, that are not particularly efficient with money. They are, I don't even know what kind of analog there is for these guys, but essentially they will take money out of these candidates or PACs or whatever it is, and they just kind of blitz it. They just throw it out there, and they have a formula. Okay, there is a formula that they use for the percentage of spends: direct mail versus TV and radio versus social. I mean, it's a pretty predictable formula used by most of these guys, as I've been able to ascertain and pick out as of late. But that being said, I will tell you that John Cornyn's ads on X, two things are happening there. Number one, they are probably pumping his campaign for every dime they can get. That's just the reality. Probably not necessarily measuring return on investment or effectiveness. It's a flood the zone kind of mentality. And who makes money off of that? The consultants make money off of that. When they flood the zone like that, because they know that there's so much money that's going to be coming into that campaign. They can afford to flood the zone. It's kind of like you see in these movies with these guys, I don't know, like 80s action movies, and you see them whip out the machine gun and they start shooting, and it's, spray and pray, right? It's kind of like that. I mean, there are some rationales where flooding the zone makes sense. We've had to do it before, try to flood the zone, try to hit everybody you possibly can. But at this stage of the game, they should be targeting as many of, and activating their voters for the Get Out the Vote campaign, which will start with early voting for the runoffs, okay? Which kind of gets down to what I think is the second thing that's going on. You like Chris, I mean, I'm guessing you were not a John Cornyn fan. I know you, right? But understand, those ads are not targeted at you, right? You're seeing them, but they're not for you. They're spending the money to show them, but they're not designed for you. They're not here to change your mind. They're after the people who need reinforcement for their decision. They're already going to vote for him to get the enthusiasm and excitement out, or those people that are still on the fence about the thing. And when you look at polling, like I saw a recent poll, I haven't seen it yet, but it was told to me today. There's, poll that shows Paxton like 3 points up. Political polling's broken, but it's about the best guideline that maybe they've got. And so if they're pumping that kind of money to flood the zone, then they're really targeting those people that are undecided, or those people that haven't made up their mind, or the persuadables. I mean, they're not targeting them. They're really hoping they will get them. And I will tell you, I had this conversation recently about political mailers. So I wish we probably should have pulled this instead, right? How many of you are sick and tired of getting political mailers? Oh, and look, no surprise on the poll. A lot of you are thinking Ken Paxton is going to win this race. The conversation that I had was based off of a lot of data. I did a lot of data analysis for this recent primary. And what was interesting was to see the disconnect, right? A lot of the people, and I'm sure some of you are tired of political mailers, sick and tired of them. Man, where's that? Like, this was sent to me. This is a FedEx packet, all compressed down, right? All compressed down. But this is every single mailer that was delivered in a particular race, not going to tell you where because I cannot, but it was every mailer sent and delivered from both sides. And the total in there is north of 50. Okay, so this was in the last primary. And when you talk to people that are, that are very, I guess you would say engaged voters, right? They know the issues, they know the players, they know all those things. Every one of them will say, we are absolutely sick and tired of political mailers. They don't move the needle. They don't make any difference whatsoever. However, if you go look and you analyze all of the political establishment incumbents, they didn't even have to be incumbents, just in that political establishment cohort. And you look, every single one of those campaigns was heavier on mailer spend than anything else. And I've got the evidence from this one race to prove it, but that's not the only one, right? Because you can go analyze TEC reports, find out all kind of cool stuff. But every single race to a person, the heaviest spend was on political mailers. Okay, so what does that mean? Does that mean that the political consultants are just burning money on mailers because they don't work? Absolutely not. Is it that they're flooding the zone? No, because if they were, the spend would probably be adjacent or pretty close to some of the other, other items that they're spending on for a campaign. They're sending them, and they repeatedly send them because they're effective, because they work. And when people say mailers don't work, I'm so disgusted by it. Well, that's confirmation bias, right? You don't like them. So therefore it can, when you see them, you just assume that everybody is like you and doesn't like them, right? Anyway, I'm not trying to wander here, but I'm trying to make a point. And there was a lot of setup for this. And it goes back to Chris's question, which I'm glad he asked it because it gave me an opportunity to talk about it. Not every voter is like you. And I don't mean Chris specifically. I mean like us. Some of us are really wired in and some of us are not very wired in, right? We have high information voters and low information voters. And it's not an insult to low information voters, but we literally have a t-shirt for sale in the Texian store that says low information voters kill republics. If you want to understand why we keep getting some of the same slugs in office, it's because of low information voters. And for a low information voter that's not, they're not keyed into the issues or the policy or the people, sometimes seeing their name a bunch of times on X is what gets the vote, or getting 50 mailers. I think probably like 40 of these mailers from one side of the equation, but seeing that name over and over, when they roll into the polls, they think, ooh, I have to vote because it's my duty to vote. And I'm a slug if I don't, and I don't get the little sticker and I can't, go show it off to other people, but I don't know who to vote for. Wait a minute. Man, I saw a lot of mail come in for this name. That's the name they remember, and that's ultimately who they vote for. So, those things are effective, at least for low information voters. So you change that equation by decreasing the number of low information voters, or by playing that same game, right? The same game, the same mix of spend and everything else. Or you spend an awful lot of time out there educating those that can be educated and persuaded. That's the two ways you combat it, because it is impossible for a free government to survive fools that have the power of the vote. It's just the absolute truth. Okay, look, I think that poll's done, right? I think it's pretty overwhelming that you guys think Ken Paxton is going to win. So we will, obviously, it's one of the races we got to watch. So it'll be interesting, and I'm sure somebody will screenshot that and post that someplace. But yeah, beyond a shadow of a doubt, Ken smashed that poll. All right. Thank you for your question, Chris. Let's see what we got over here. I'm not answering the World Cup soccer question again. I did that already. Let's see here. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, here we go. No name. Hello. What will prevent Texas from falling into Clown Town as England did after Brexit? Brexit didn't seem to help England because their politicians are corrupted and they took them with them when they left. I guess this is a PS. I'm 100% in favor of all the states leaving the federal government. We thoroughly agree on the second part, but let's unpack the first part and talk about that. Brexit as a process suffered from a sequencing problem. I probably should write about this somewhere, but I know I've talked about it on here before, but it had a sequencing problem. And that sequencing problem was that the trigger was pulled for the vote at a time when the Remainers believed that they would win it. And we know this because we know someone who had the conversation with David Cameron and had him unpack his reasoning for calling the vote when he did. And they've got a whole different system over there, right? So we want to just be very clear that what we're talking about here, I'm going to talk about this Brexit process and why it went off the rails. But understand that we have two very different systems. And so it's not analogous to our situation at all. And then I'm going to tell you how the TNM has planned to offset any of these problems. But ultimately what happened was they called the vote and then the Remainers lost. Leave won. And so, boom, there it is. Now, you hit on what was the real problem, which was when they voted to leave, they still had the same bums in office that fought against it, right? The same people that called for the, that stood in opposition to the vote, stood against having a vote and then stood in opposition to leaving. Those people were still in power from top to bottom. Now, look, whatever criticisms I may have or you may have or anyone has with David Cameron as prime minister, he really did kind of the honorable thing, right? Which is, he said, look, I was against Brexit, but I gave the people the vote and the people have spoken. And because I stood against the UK leaving the European Union, I am not the person to be your prime minister. I can't lead you that direction, having just fought you to keep us in. So he resigned, right? I mean, again, for everything that David Cameron said, every problem, he at least he was honorable in that moment. And I don't know that many politicians would have the integrity. Is that the word we're looking for? But what that did was, because the vote was held and the general elections were not till some time down the road, what it effectively did was it meant that people were embedded in the deepest levels of government that absolutely wanted to do everything they could to sabotage the process. Typical fifth column, right? And that's exactly what happened. I mean, they delayed it. Remember, think about when they delayed triggering Article 50, all of the problems they had since then. And then they had these hapless politicians. And when people say that Brexit is done, when you hear them say that, it's not entirely the case at all, because when the UK left, while some of the things were settled when they left, some of the things were settled, but some of the laws that were placed on the books, some of the agreements that were signed, effectively continue to align the UK with policies that came out of the European Union. Let's talk about the European Court of what do they call the ECR, the European Court of Human Rights. I mean, there's so many things, right? And so you've got what is essentially Great Britain, because you don't want to just isolate this to England only, right? But you got Great Britain that is technically out of the European Union, that still has some alignment, and you still really have a lot of the bums in charge of things that didn't want to leave in the first place. And so a lot of that filth that came out of Brussels kind of carried over a lot of that mindset, and a lot of the damage had been done, right? Whether it was the European Union's asylum policy, or I mean, there was just a ton of things. It's no need to get into European politics or the UK, but all of that is to say that, you know, we're at a point now where you probably won't see any post-Brexit vote substantive changes as a result of Brexit until they have a complete flip of government, right? When they just got finished throwing the Conservatives out and put Labour in, I mean, that's just been abysmal. And so, you know, Reform UK, which used to be really the Brexit party, looks set to run the table in the next general election. But that's when I think you'll be able to see some sanity restored, or at least see people see a government that is responsive to the same concerns that drove the UK out of the European Union, and don't want to see those concerns played out at home in the absence of it, you know. And I hear that a lot. So let's shift over to Texas, okay? Because I hear people talk about, they will a lot of times cite Brexit, but then they will talk about how is Texas going to be any better when we've got these really terrible bastards in charge of things in Austin. And I mean, you know, a lot of that I can't disagree with, right? I mean, we've got a political establishment problem here. But as I said on some previous live streams and interviews, it ignores the real battle, right? We want to separate. We want Texas separate from the federal system. We want it to stand as a self-governing independent nation. But that does not absolve our responsibility for having good government at home. It just removes one layer that we don't need. And we have to understand that so much of why Texas is jacked up in the political establishment is because of our attachment to the federal system, whether it's federal programs, agencies, federal laws, attention. I mean, I'm not going to go through all those again, but for many, many reasons. We even talked about one tonight, which is money coming from outside of Texas into Texas elections. I mean, it's a massive problem that goes away after Texas independence. But we have to remember that the real battle here, like the fundamental battle, is between the people and an entrenched political establishment, the machine, if you will. And so we have to understand that having Texas become a self-governing independent nation gives us a path to fixing and correcting our government here at home. But it is not a guarantee that that will happen. And anybody who looked at Brexit that way, I think it's sorely disappointed, and I think very short-sighted. That said, here's how we plan for it. Because remember, two very different systems. The UK has one system. We have another one. They, you know, executed or invoked Article 50, began the process. They still had the bums in place. Wasn't for a while till they had general elections, et cetera, et cetera. Here, the sequencing is a little bit different. The Texas Independence Referendum Act calls for having the vote in the November election after the end of the legislative session. The reason being is twofold. Number one, that's when we normally have constitutional amendment elections. Not that this is a constitutional amendment, but by holding it on that same day, what it effectively does is means there is zero cost for asking the people the question. We don't have to have a special election. We don't have to do anything special. We just got to put the question on the ballot. It literally costs ink on paper or pixels on a screen. You were already going to ask about these constitutional amendments. Here's the next question. Here's one more question that you need to add to it. Now, granted, it'll be the star of the show, right? But that's one reason, is so it becomes revenue neutral. But the second reason is simply this. We know that average voter turnout for independence referendums is about 85%, right? That's generally can kind of fluctuate up or down depending on which ones you include as independence referendums, which ones you don't, depending on your time. But the safe number is the ballpark of 85%. So understand that an 85% voter turnout in Texas is unheard of. I mean, that's nothing gets there. We don't have anything that's got an 85% voter turnout. But look at the electoral reality of that, okay? Depending on when we have it, let's just kind of take the numbers where they are right now. 17 million registered voters. If you have an 85% voter turnout and say 55 to 60% turnout in favor of TEXIT, it's going to put you somewhere, depending on the turnout, between 9.2 to 9.8 million voters coming out and saying, I want Texas to be a self-governing independent nation. Well, I think it's quite interesting, because that is far more in total votes for one issue, in favor of one issue, than the number of voters that voted for everyone in the last gubernatorial election. Okay, so I mean, it's a massive, massive turnout, the likes of which Texas politics has never seen. So what is the net effect of that? Well, here you go. Sequence. Bill passes. We have the run till November, which would be when the question is asked. This largest block of voters goes through that has ever gone through. And in the process, right between that legislative session in November, everybody's going to be forced to take a position on it, especially anyone in politics, whether it's your state rep, your state senator, your governor, whoever it is, it doesn't matter. But the key thing is going to be the legislature, right? So what you got to understand is, from a sequencing perspective, immediately after that vote, where you've got 9.2 to 9.6 or 9.8 million pro-Texit voters just went to the polls, like 2 weeks after that, maybe 3, depending on when they open the window, but typically 2, all of a sudden now the filing window opens for the next election, for people to file to run for office. So if I'm 9.2 to 9.8 million voters, and I'm looking at an incumbent in any race that's up whatsoever, that stood between, that tried to keep me from voting for TEXIT, or stood against it, argued against it, then what is going to happen? Whether it's me as a person or anyone else, they see that incumbent, they're going to get an opponent, right? This person's going to stand up and say, that guy can't represent me, and will be backed by every single TEXIT voter. So, you don't have this situation where they go vote for TEXIT at the beginning of November, and by the end of November, they've forgotten that they voted for it. They are literally going to run anti-TEXIT politicians out of town on a rail. They're just going to do it, because no politician whatsoever in Texas would be able to face that sort of onslaught, no matter how much money they have. The anger that people will have against politicians that stand between them and the TEXIT vote, this wave, I mean, you talk about, the Dems always talk about this blue wave. There's no excitement there. You've heard about the red wave that turns out to be a spilled glass of cab salve on a white carpet. I mean, it's not anything to write home about. But you want to talk about highly motivated, north of somewhere between 9 and 10 million voters that are ready to boot out those people that stood between them and independence. None of them can stand it. So what that immediately does for us is, right where we are, Texas independence referendum, in the sequencing, it puts us in a position to, right out of the gate. So you have filing window open in November. So we'll have all of November, all of December, all of January, all of February, 4 months. And then you've got what is effectively the March primaries. These people are gone, baby, gone. So what you're going to wind up with is something that the UK didn't for Brexit. Thank you very much. You're going to wind up with something the UK didn't have after Brexit, which was an immediate opportunity in less than 6 months to completely clean house. And granted, depending on which year it is, will depend on, maybe what senators are up, or, all of that sort of thing. I mean, you may have to put up with a governor and a lieutenant governor for being ridiculous. It just really all depends on which year the Referendum Act passes. But either way, we get to have an opportunity to blow a substantial chunk of them out, at a minimum, a substantial chunk. Because you got to remember, every 2 years, all 150 House seats are up, all 150. You're going to have, depending on the year, a certain number of the senators that are going to go, that are going to be up. And depending on whether this falls on a year like this year with governor and lieutenant governor and all the statewide, you may have an opportunity there as well. Just depends on how it falls. But the sequencing is in our favor. So a lot of answer to a question that seemed very short, but it really isn't. Those questions are there is no short answer to that question, because we have to all understand that the situations, why the situations are, got to explain the apple, then we got to explain the orange, and we have to explain why the orange is superior to the apple in this situation. Boom, there we go. All right. Let's see what we got here. I know what I got. Thanks to Kara, I got more coffee, so that makes me happy. All right, let's get over here and take a look. Okay, so here's a question that came in on the Texian app. I've been out of Texas. I've been out of the Texas independence loop for a while, and I'm a Pennsylvanian, but a Baylor grad. In your polls, are Texans still as supportive of Texas independence as they were during the Biden administration? Yeah, I mean, we're in a position. Look, I said it then, and people during the Obama administration, people are like, the only reason you guys are doing this is because Obama's president. When Trump got elected, they're like, no one will be in support of independence because Trump got elected and Obama's no longer president. But yet, that was one of the biggest growth phases that we had from 2016 to 2020, right? I mean, it was a pretty massive growth spurt. Then, it was the same situation, Biden. With Biden. Well, Biden's president, and so of course you're going to grow because he's trying to crush you guys. It's like, yeah, we did. But, when Trump gets elected, you guys are going to die and nobody's going to support this. And it's just not true. That's not what happened. It betrays a fundamental misunderstanding of what it is that drives independent support. Now, polling, I've got some podcast episodes about how political polling is broken. I'm not going to go through all that here again tonight, but it's fundamentally broken. And how they ask the question, will affect that. But has there been a decrease in support? No. And you'll see. I mean, time's coming. We're getting close to the midterms and we're getting close to legislative session. And we will start running campaigns in the lead up to the legislative session, and you will see that level of support, if not more. I'm going to tell you, the electorate they are not happy. Something is going to have to give. Something is, whether it's politics, economy, culture, whatever it is, the electorate is furious. And they're fragmented right now. But they're really just generally, to call it discontent feels like underselling it some. But there is a fury in the electorate. I don't know if you guys saw the article that was posted on the Texian Partisan about that Ragnar research report. Grain of salt. You see that name and you kind of want, gag me. But I would have just dismissed it out of hand, except for the fact that what they were reporting, we are literally seeing anecdotally on the ground, right? So it tracks with observation. So it's not just I don't think it's a data anomaly. I think it really tracks with what's happening on the ground and what we're seeing in the electorate, and they're furious. So, to your point, Anon, because apparently we don't display names over here on the Q&A, which is kind of weird. Maybe we need to do that. But anyway, long story short, yeah, I mean, I am as confident as I've ever been that if we go to a vote tomorrow, we're going to win. And I'll tell you the vibe from the electorate now. You know, I've said they're angry, they're upset, but there's almost, I think, from the electorate a resignation that this is all that they've got left. You know, this is it. This is it. This is the last stand, right? And so, I think, you know, I've made predictions in the past. I think we'll get 60% of the vote if it goes to a vote. Honestly, I may be underselling it at this point. I just think that's exactly where people are. All right. David. That's your question, David. Thank you for it. All right. I figured it out. But thanks for asking it. All right. Let's get down to, let's see what we got here. Okay. This question is coming in from YouTube. How do you expect the U.S. to respond when we vote on secession? Interestingly enough, first thing is we're not voting on secession. We're voting to reassert our status as an independent nation. And if you think that that's a difference without distinction, you would be wrong, because it does matter indeed what we're doing, because it sets the status quo for what we believe our attitude is right now, for what we believe our status is. And we believe that Texas is a sovereign state, sovereign nation state. So that being said, how do I expect them to respond? I've said it before, and I think ultimately it holds. I think that they will respond like petulant children, but I think that response, them being limited to that response, and not going full hog wild, will be all about us following the process. And again, people are going to say, you always talk about that. You don't think they're going to do anything. It's like, no, I think about this stuff all the time. And I think about ways to execute this where they don't have a lot of room to move, because they have to run the cost benefit analysis on this stuff just like we do. And so we follow a process that is a very public, free, fair, full election, a referendum, lawfully passed, a vote by the people of Texas in those excessive numbers that I'm talking about, provides us with the political legitimacy necessary for the outcome. That it becomes more expensive for them to react poorly than it is to sit down at the table and have the conversation. And that's the position you've got to put them in. You got to put them in the position that the cost is greater for bad reaction. And if you look at it that way, it in fact is, right? In the short term, which is important, but more importantly, in the long term. If they react badly, they could, I could go through all these scenarios, but I don't think you guys want to see it. And I don't want to be here for the next hour and a half. But the point here is that you've got to make sure your process is such, as we are doing. You heard me describe some of it earlier, is such that it becomes above reproach, and the price that is paid by the federal government to react poorly to that, whether it's credibility, economy, geopolitics, cultural, whatever it is, you got to make sure that the price they pay for reacting poorly is greater than the price that they pay for having to pull one flag off of the star. Do you see what I'm saying? Or if you guys would like me to do a podcast episode about this and break it all down, I'd be more than happy to do that. Sound off in the chat if that's something you'd like. I'd be more than happy to run through it. It's a long one, though. I'm going to warn you. But I will show you, I can conclusively show you that this is the absolute best mechanism. Now, there's a lot of people out there that are hotheads that really haven't thought about this more than 5 minutes, uh, or don't know the totality of the situation, that will be more than happy to disagree with me. And that's fine. People can disagree. They can disagree all they want to. All they have to do when they disagree is show me where I'm wrong. And when I say show me, I don't mean some thumbnail sketch. Show me where this is the wrong way. And there are also going to be people out there that say, well, there are shortcuts. And I'm also going to tell you, the voice of experience, there are no shortcuts. You know, people out there love to say, I can do it better and faster and, blah, blah, blah. And if you sign this piece of paper, then, and sprinkle it with magic fairy dust, the Texas BNF, it's a bunch of crap. There are no shortcuts. And I know some of you don't want to hear that. You don't want me to say that it's a long, hard slog, right? Well, it's been a long, hard slog for yours truly, right? So it doesn't have to be a long slog for you, but the reality is the reality. This is hard work. It's not easy to do, but it is somewhat, if you are deeply, deeply committed, it is fulfilling. The cause is it. That's the top of the list there, folks, for some of us. This is why we have declared Texians on the Texian app, right? If you go to the Texian platforms, why we have declared Texians, because we want to know people that are as committed to the cause as we are. Not that everybody has to be as committed as we are, but it is great if you are. And if you are not as committed, then it helps if you support the work in some way, right? Be a member, make a contribution, come volunteer some time. Not asking everybody to just dive in the deep end feet first, but I'll be honest with you, because of the work that's been done over the past decades, that water is not nearly as deep as it could have been. All right. Thank you for your question. All right, look at that. I was trying to get Monkey Works online with it, but a video of you explaining the reality of the process might help. Hey, and here's the fun part. Here's a book over here called TEXIT. It could help you out a lot. But it's look. We did. If you want that, there's a video. There's literally the video of the TEXIT Blueprint seminar on the Texian app. It's there. I think the first 3 videos, and we'll get the rest of them up, and we'll just put it up as a course like we did, and just make it available to you guys. I did a day-long seminar in Greenville and one in Lufkin, a full day, where I went through the entirety of the TEXIT Blueprint to help you understand kind of the definitions, how you define things, how, the stages of building capacity, of getting the vote, of winning the vote, then winning the independence, and breaking down what each of those stages look like. I mean, it was a day-long thing. So, and I remember Greenville because the AC was out at the Texas Theater, and I was wearing a suit. And when I got home, I had sweat through that thing so much, the back of my suit, which is blue. If you haven't noticed, like, I have like 2 kinds of suits, right? I have a lot of blue suits and a lot of black suits, and that's it. I don't have a lot of color variation in my wardrobe, right? But the back of it was literally white from the salt, from the sweat. It was the most hideous thing. I thought I was going to heat stroke at that place, but it was a lovely venue. So, but yeah, maybe we'll do that. So let's make a note of that. Making a note now. We'll get the TEXIT Blueprint up, and we'll make it available to anybody on the Texian app. How about that? All right. Well, guys, that is going to have to be the last question for tonight, because I am really anxious and jonesing to get back to work on that project of great import through that door there. But in the meantime, let's do this. A reminder, I said just a moment ago about the Texian app. Be sure to go do that. I keep saying Texian app, and it's got it in there, but it's not like an app, right? It's literally the skeletal framework for the entire independence effort. And I mean everything. whether it's, building the nation and building the community, or organizing in your county, or connecting with other Texas independent supporters, or educating yourself, or just launching the new courseware system. The TNM Academy is finally making its debut over there, or live stream and communications. It is the thing that removes the block between big tech censorship and us, right? We can now communicate with one another without big tech saying, no, sorry, you can't communicate about Texas independence. You can't upload a video about Texas independence, or we just won't show it to anybody, or you can't post that about Texas. And, that goes away. This is ours. This is the backbone, the skeletal framework of the work that we're doing in the Texas nationalist movement. And look, if I haven't sold it enough, go over there and do it now. Go to texian.app, sign up. I mean, you can literally drop off the stream now and go sign up, or go download the mobile app, which is actually more important, in the Google Play Store, or on the Apple App Store. But let's make that happen. Additionally, be sure to head over to texianstore.com and pick up your TEXIT and Texas themed merch. All proceeds go to support the work of the Texas nationalist movement and our goal to make Texas a self-governing and independent nation state. And I mentioned it earlier, but the official news of the TNM, and really for all Texians, head over to Texian Partisan, texianpartisan.com. Articles all the time popping over there, but it's the only place where you can get news and analysis from the perspective of people just like you that want to see Texas as a self-governing independent nation. And additionally, look, if you've got TEXIT questions, a lot of the basics, right? A lot of the, what about the military? What about Social Security? What about this? This is the place you go, texitnow.org. It is the single largest selection of questions and answers on the issue of Texas independence out there, more being added regularly. So if you've got fundamental questions about how TEXIT works, head over to texitnow.org and get your questions answered. All right. I would be remiss and would get chastised if I did not mention this before I wrap up. A couple of things. I will be on the Josh Tolley Show podcast. We'll be sure to get, when that's posted, we'll be sure to get a link posted out on the Texian app. That's coming up. And I'm going to be on the podcast of an academic, the guy probably, and I mentioned him, he was at the Abbeville conference, the world's foremost expert on the philosophy and life of Thomas Jefferson. He has a podcast, and he, at that conference, became newly converted to our viewpoint that every state should be examining its exit strategy from the Union. So I'm going to be guesting on his podcast. Additionally, we just posted a new event. The Texas Nationalist Movement will have a booth again at this year's Republican Party of Texas convention. Some of you may or may not be happy about that. I cannot speak to that. But the point is, we will need to have a presence there because we've got planks that we need to advance, right? We've got planks in the platform about independence and many other things that we need to advance to try to get them to become legislative priorities. And so we absolutely are going to need your help. Every one of you are going to probably get an email pretty soon asking for your help to fund the convention. None of that comes out of that booth and our efforts there. None of that comes out of general revenue, right? We have to raise separately for that because it's just, it's a once every 2-year expense. It requires a bit of a spike, but the ask is not nearly as high this year as it has been in previous conventions. Because we're super efficient. So if you can, be sure to go make a contribution now. You can go donate to the TNM right now, but be expecting an email and posts in the Texian app with information and asks for you to help, right? Whether it's a contribution or whether you're going there as a delegate and can help us while you're there on site. We definitely need to hear from you. So stay tuned for that. Go sign up on the event on the Texian app. It's there. So be sure to get connected up with that. Okay, friends, that is it. I've got to get back to work. And so I want to thank you all for being here tonight. And I will leave you with the words that I leave you with every time we're together. They're not my words. They're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now. And the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.